Hi, I'm Rachel, and I'm catless in this video. Alas, Leia has found new and interesting places to hide around in my condo, and she is not here. But I do have a fun themed book haul for this month. Some of you might know that the last week of September is Banned Books Week, as put out by the American Library Association. Banned Books Week celebrates the freedom to read anything and stands against censorship. In the United States, banning books, censoring books, usually comes in the form of small communities around the country where in school libraries or in general libraries, usually some narrow-minded person stands against a book because of not liking a certain idea or worldview, and that's not cool. But what is cool is the DC Public Library's personal response to all of this. For the second year in a row, the DC Public Library organized a citywide scavenger hunt for banned books. They ordered 600 titles of banned books, and they hid them in local businesses and organizations and branches of the library. I didn't participate last year, but I decided this year to get in on the fun. This year's theme is called Texts Against Tyranny, and it is involving 6 dystopian novels that have been banned in certain situations. Every weekday morning of the month, a local radio station has broadcast a rhyming little clue about a different location where hunters can look for books. And many of us post our finds and clues for other people online on Instagram and Twitter using the hashtag #UncensoredDC. 15 of the books are even golden in color, called the golden tickets, because they get you free admission into this party that the library is hosting at the end of the month. I say the books are golden. What I really mean is that the library has created special covers for these books so that we know that they're part of the game, and the spines of the cover, when all 6 are put together, create this really interesting, pretty image of an eye, which you can see in my thumbnail picture and also in a blog post that I'll link down below, because I had an interesting time for a couple of weeks this month looking for these books. I've lived in this city, or right outside of DC to be technical, for several years, but this project encouraged me to go to all new types of places and explore the city like never before, so it had that interesting component going for it as well. But I thought here in my book haul video, I'd talk about the specific books that I found and where, and leave links below if you're interested in local DC businesses and such. And, of course, tell you exactly which books they are. So starting on September 10th, I went to a local coffee chain called Compass Coffee in their Shaw neighborhood location, a neighborhood that I've never been to before either. And I found this book. This is another feature of all of the books. On the covers, the library printed quotes from the books. So this one, pardon my Latin, or lack thereof, "No lite te bastardes carborundurum." Oh gosh. And inside is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. I know many of you know what this book is about. I myself have been gritting my teeth over the fact that I don't have Hulu and that maybe I should buy it, because the television adaptation looks really good and it certainly won a lot of awards at the Emmys. Here's what the back of this edition says. Offred is a handmaid of the Republic of Gilead. She may leave the home of the commander and his wife once a day to walk to food markets whose signs are now in pictures instead of words, because women are no longer allowed to read. She must lie on her back once a month and pray that the commander makes her pregnant, because in an age of declining births, Offred and the other handmaidens are valued only if their ovaries are viable. Offred can remember the years before, when she lived and made love with her husband Luke, when she played with and protected her daughter, when she had a job, money of her own, and access to knowledge. But all of that is gone now. Funny, unexpected, horrifying, and altogether convincing, The Handmaid's Tale is at once a scathing satire, dire warning, and tour de force. So next on the 10th, I went to Riverby Books, which is a used bookstore in Capitol Hill, really near to where I work, but I hadn't actually made it over there before. Just a shame. It's very cozy, little niche-y sort of place. And I found this book in the stacks. The quote on here is, "Freedom is dangerous, but it's precious too." And the book is Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. I've never read any Butler before, but as a prominent, perhaps the first prominent African-American science fiction writer, she's definitely been on my radar, so I'm very excited to have the excuse now. Here's what her book is about, according to this edition. When unattended environmental and economic crises lead to social chaos, not even gated communities are safe. In a night of fire and death, Lauren Olamina, a minister's young daughter, loses her family and her home and ventures out into the unprotected American landscape. But what begins as a flight for survival soon leads to something much more, a startling vision of human destiny and the birth of a new faith. Finally, on the 10th, I ended up, thanks to following Twitter clues, at a local grocery store called the Union Kitchen Grocery, and I found this book. Its quote is, "They hadn't heard of me until they feared me." And the book is Who Fears Death by Nnedi Okorafor. Nnedi Okorafor is another woman of color writing speculative fiction who was also on my radar. And in fact, just today, Binti just came into my digital library loans from the holds list. But now I have a physical copy of one of her books to read as well. Here's what it says on the back. In a post-apocalyptic Africa, a woman who has survived the annihilation of her village and a terrible rape by an enemy general wanders into the desert hoping to die. Instead, she gives birth to an angry baby girl with skin and hair the color of sand. Gripped by the certainty that her daughter is different, special, she names her Onyesonwu, which means "who fears death" in an ancient language. Onya is Iwu, a child of rape who is expected to live a life of violence, a half-breed rejected by her community. But as Onya grows, she manifests the beginnings of a remarkable and unique magic, and during an inadvertent visit to the spirit realm, she learns something terrifying. Someone powerful is trying to kill her. Desperate to elude her would-be murderer and to understand her own nature, she embarks on a journey in which she grapples with nature, tradition, history, true love, and the spiritual mysteries of her culture, and ultimately learns why she was given the name she bears, Who Fears Death. So for almost a full week after that, I searched in vain for copies of new books. It was stressful, kind of, but also a bit exhilarating. You know, you really get into the spirit of the hunt. I certainly checked Twitter and this particular hashtag more than I ever had before and felt more connected to Twitter than I have in a while. So what do you know? Finally, on Saturday, I had the time in the morning to walk from my condo to the closest library branch to me, which turned out to be the one that I wasn't using. I walked an extra half mile to get to another library branch, but now I know about this one, thanks to this branch being used to hide the library books, so. And propped up on a little stand in the stacks, I found this book. Its quote is, "Revolutions are infinite," and the book is We by Yevgeny Zamyatin. Apologies once again, this time for Russian. This one, I believe, is our only foreign language published book, and it was banned in the Soviet Union. On the back it says, "In the one state of the great benefactor, there are no individuals, only numbers. Life is an ongoing process of mathematical precision, a perfectly balanced equation. Primitive passions and instincts have been subdued. Even nature has been defeated, banished behind the green wall. But one frontier remains, outer space. Now, with the creation of the spaceship Integral, that frontier, and whatever alien species are to be found there, will be subjugated to the beneficent yoke of reason." One number, D503, chief architect of Integral, decides to record his thoughts in the final days before the launch for the benefit of less advanced societies. But a chance meeting with the beautiful I-330 results in an unexpected discovery that threatens everything D503 believes about himself and the one state. The discovery, or rediscovery, of inner space, and that disease the ancients called the soul. a page-turning SF adventure, a masterpiece of wit and black humor that accurately predicted the horrors of Stalinism. We is the classic dystopian novel. Its messages of hope and warning is as timely at the end of the 20th century as it was at the beginning. Also on that Saturday, I trekked into Georgetown, which is not an easy thing to do without a car. I was headed for Georgetown University, where they were having this family fun day of sorts outside, and the library was set up with a little table. And when I got there, on that table was a copy of this book. Its quote is, "A book is a loaded gun, burn it." And inside we have Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. This is another big classic in the States, but let's read from the back of this edition. 60 years after its original publication, Ray Bradbury's internationally acclaimed novel Fahrenheit 451 stands as a classic of world literature set in a bleak dystopian future. Today, its message has grown more relevant than ever before. Guy Montang is a fireman. His job is to destroy the most illegal of commodities, the printed book, along with the houses in which they are hidden. Montag never questions the destruction and ruin his actions produce, returning each day to his bland life and wife, Mildred, who spends all day with her television family. But when he meets an eccentric young neighbor, Clarice, who introduces him to a past where people didn't live in fear, and to a present where one sees the world through the ideas in books instead of the mindless chatter of television, Montag begins to question everything he has ever known. This 60th anniversary edition commemorates Ray Bradbury's masterpiece with a new introduction by Neil Gaiman, personal essays on the genesis of the novel by the author, a wealth of critical essays and reviews by Nelson Algren, Harold Bloom, Margaret Atwood, and others, rare manuscript pages and sketches from Ray Bradbury's personal archive, and much more. Here, at last, is the definitive edition of a classic of world literature. And finally, on Tuesday, I went to the Anacostia Art Center in Anacostia. I'd never been there before. I never heard of the Art Center, but it's this really interesting place that has exhibits and theater and store spaces for mostly artists of color, I believe. While I was there, I actually went on one of the final days to see this exhibit of textiles that were hung and sometimes for sale in their main hall. And I also found this, my final book, whose quote is, "If everything is the same, then there aren't any choices." And the book is The Giver by Lois Lowry. Well, of all the books that I found this month and were available for me to find, this is the only one that I've actually read. It came out as a middle grade novel around the time that I was a middle grade reader. Although at the time I didn't read it. It freaked me out a bit then. And I actually think I mistook it in my mind for one of Lowry's YA Holocaust-themed books. This one is also a little bit bleak in a way. And I know that many of you know what it's about, but I'll read from the back anyway. Life in the community where Jonas lives is idyllic. Designated birth mothers produce new children who are assigned to appropriate family units, one male, one female, to each. Citizens are assigned to their partners and their jobs. No one thinks to ask questions. Everyone obeys. The community is precisely choreographed world without conflict, inequality, divorce, unemployment, injustice, or choice. Everyone is the same, except Jonas. At the ceremony of 12, the community's 12-year-olds eagerly accept their predetermined life assignments. But Jonas is chosen for something special. He begins instruction in his life's work with a mysterious old man known only as the Giver. Gradually, Jonas learns that power lies within feelings. But when his own power is put to the test, when he must try to save someone he loves, he may not be ready. Is it too soon or too late? So there we have it. 6 new free books for me, a fun themed scavenger hunt where I got to go to new places and even interact with new people, and promotion for Banned Books Week. I'd say this is a killer book haul for me. I hope you enjoyed it too. And I hope you enjoy what you're reading. Celebrate the freedom to read. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.